Even the air in Transylvania keeps its secrets. The kind that press against the windows at night, waiting to see if you'll notice. Within the walls of Castle Dracula, Jonathan Harker's journal continues, but the lines between hospitality and captivity have begun to blur. Chapter 2. Jonathan Harker's Journal, continued. May 5th. I must have been asleep, because if I'd been fully awake, I couldn't have missed the arrival at such a strange and remarkable place. In the dim light, the courtyard looked vast, with several dark archways leading off beneath great round stone vaults. It may have seemed larger than it truly was, but I haven't yet seen it in daylight. When the carriage stopped, the driver jumped down and offered his hand to help me out. Again, I was struck by his incredible strength. His grip felt like iron, as if he could have crushed my hand if he'd wanted to. He unloaded my bags and placed them beside me, right in front of a massive wooden door, studded with iron nails and set into a thick stone archway. Even in the gloom, I could see the stone was intricately carved, though worn down by centuries of wind and weather. As I stood there, the driver climbed back into the carriage, snapped the reins, and disappeared into one of the dark archways without a word. I was left alone. There was no bell, no knocker. The walls loomed above me, the windows dark and narrow. I doubted even a shout would carry through them. I waited. The silence stretched on, and with it came a growing unease. What kind of place had I come to? What kind of people lived here? Was this really part of a solicitor's job, traveling to a remote castle to finalize a real estate deal? Solicitor's clerk, I thought bitterly. Mina wouldn't like that. But no, just before I left London, I received word that I'd passed my exam. I'm a full solicitor now. I rubbed my eyes and pinched my arm, half expecting to wake up in my own bed with the morning light creeping through the curtains. But no, I was awake. I was here, in the Carpathians. All I could do was wait for morning. Just then, I heard heavy footsteps behind the door and saw a flicker of light through the cracks. Chains rattled, bolts clanked, and a key turned with a long, rusty groan. The door creaked open. A tall, old man stood there, clean-shaven except for a long white mustache, dressed entirely in black. He held an antique silver lamp, its open flame casting long, flickering shadows. He raised his hand in a formal gesture and said, in excellent but oddly accented English, "Welcome to my house. Enter freely, and of your own will." He didn't move to greet me, just stood there like a statue. But the moment I stepped inside, he suddenly came forward and shook my hand. His grip was painfully strong, and his skin was ice cold, more like a corpse than a living man. "Welcome to my house," he repeated. "Come freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring." His handshake felt eerily familiar, just like the driver's. I hadn't seen the driver's face, so I asked, "Count Dracula?" He bowed slightly. "I am Dracula. Welcome, Mr. Harker. Come in. The night air is cold, and you must be hungry and tired." He placed the lamp on a wall bracket, stepped outside, and carried in my bags before I could stop him. "Please," he said. "You are my guest. It's late, and my staff are unavailable. Let me see to your comfort myself." He led me through a long stone corridor, our footsteps echoing, then up a winding staircase and down another hallway. At the end, he opened a heavy door to a warm, well-lit room. A table was set for supper, and a roaring fire blazed in the hearth. He set down my bags, crossed the room, and opened another door into a small, windowless octagonal chamber lit by a single lamp. Beyond that, he opened a third door and gestured for me to enter. Inside was a large bedroom, also lit and warmed by a fresh fire. "You want to freshen up after your journey," he said. "Everything you need should be here. When you're ready, come back to the other room. Your supper is waiting." The warmth, the light, and the Count's polite welcome eased my nerves. Once I felt more like myself and realized how hungry I was, I quickly washed up and returned to the dining room. The Count stood by a fireplace and motioned to the table. "Please, eat whatever you like. Forgive me for not joining you. I've already dined, and I do not sup." I handed him the sealed letter from Mr. Hawkins. He read it carefully, then smiled and passed it back to me. One part of it made me feel proud. "I regret that my gout prevents me from traveling, but I'm sending someone I trust completely. He's young, capable, and loyal. He's grown up in my service and will carry out your instructions faithfully." The Count uncovered a dish, and I eagerly dug into a delicious roast chicken, with cheese salad and a bottle of old Tokay wine. As I ate, he asked about my journey, and I told him everything in pieces. When I finished, he offered me a cigar, though he didn't smoke himself, and I sat by the fire. It gave me a chance to study him more closely. His face was striking, sharp, aquiline features, a high forehead, and thick, arched eyebrows that nearly met. His mustache was heavy, and beneath it, his mouth looked stern, almost cruel. His teeth were unusually sharp and white, and his lips were oddly red for someone his age. His ears were pale and pointed at the tips. His chin was broad, his cheeks thin, and his skin deathly pale. Earlier, I'd only noticed his hands in the firelight. They seemed pale and refined, but now up close, I saw they were broad and rough, with thick fingers and even hair on the palms. His nails were long and pointed. When he leaned over and touched me, I shuddered. Maybe it was his breath, but I felt a wave of nausea I couldn't hide. He noticed and pulled back, smiling grimly and revealing more of those sharp teeth. We sat in silence for a while. I glanced at the window and saw the first faint light of dawn. Everything was still, until I heard the distant howling of wolves from the valley below. The Count's eyes lit up. "Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make!" He must have seen something in my expression, because he added, "Ah, city dwellers can't understand the heart of the hunter." Then he stood. "You must be tired. Your room is ready. Sleep as long as you like. I'll be away until the afternoon. Rest well and dream well." He bowed and opened the door to the octagonal room. I stepped into my bedroom. I'm overwhelmed. I doubt. I fear. I think things I dare not admit, even to myself. God keep me, if not for my sake, then for those I love. May 7th. It's early morning again. I've slept well, perhaps too well. And for the first time in days, I woke without dread pressing in on my chest. I rose late, of my own accord, and dressed slowly, trying to hold on to that fragile sense of normalcy. When I stepped into the dining room, I found a cold breakfast waiting. The coffee, still warm from the hearth, gave off a faint, bitter aroma that seemed to echo the silence of the castle. On the table was a card, written in the Count's precise hand. "I have to be absent for a while. Do not wait for me. D." I ate in silence. The food was fine, but I tasted little. When I finished, I instinctively looked for a bell to summon someone, anyone, but of course, there was none. There never is. This place is full of wealth, gold tableware, carved stone, ancient tapestries, but it lacks the simplest signs of life. No servants, no voices, no footsteps but my own. The furnishings are exquisite: velvet drapes, embroidered cushions, bed hangings of silk and brocade. They must be centuries old, yet they're preserved as if time itself fears to touch them. I've seen similar pieces at Hampton Court, but there they're faded, moth-eaten, worn by history. Here, they feel untouched, preserved, waiting. And yet not a single mirror, not even a small one on my dressing table. I had to dig out my travel mirror just to shave. It's a small thing, but it gnaws at me. Why would a house so steeped in opulence lack something so basic? I haven't seen a soul, not a servant, not a shadow, only the Count and the wolves. After my meal, though I hesitate to call it breakfast, as it was nearly 6 o'clock, I searched for something to read. I didn't want to wander without permission, but the room was bare, no books, no papers, not even a scrap of writing. I opened a side door and found a library. The door opposite mine was locked. The library was a revelation, shelves upon shelves of English books, histories, geographies, political treaties, scientific texts. There were bound volumes of newspapers and magazines, though none recent. I even found reference books, the London Directory, Whitaker's Almanac, the Army and Navy's lists, and, to my quiet relief, the law list. It felt like a lifeline, a reminder of home. While I was browsing, the Count entered. He greeted me with that same smooth courtesy, his voice low and deliberate. "I'm glad you have found your way in here. These books have been my companions for many years. Through them, I've come to know your England. And to know her is to love her." He moved through the room like a shadow, his long fingers trailing across the spines of the books. "I long to walk the crowded streets of London, to feel the press of life, the rush of time, the pulse of a great city. But so far, I know your language only through these pages. That is why I need you, my friend, to help me speak it, to help me become it." I told him, "But Count, you already speak English remarkably well." He bowed slightly, his eyes gleaming. "You are kind. But I know better. In London, they would hear my voice and know me for a stranger. And that is not enough. Here I am noble, I am known, but in a foreign land, a stranger is no one. I must blend in. I must vanish into the crowd." There was something in his tone, something cold and resolute, that made my skin prickle. "You are not just here as Mr. Hawkins' agent. I hope you will stay a while, speak with me, correct me, teach me. I am sorry I was away so long today, but I trust you understand. I have many matters to attend to." I nodded, unsure what else to say. He smiled, and the sharpness of his teeth caught the firelight. I asked if I might return to the library whenever I wished. "Of course," he said. "You may go anywhere in the castle except where the doors are locked. There are reasons for everything. If you saw with my eyes, you would understand." His words lingered in the air like smoke. "We are in Transylvania, not England. Our ways are different. You've already seen that, haven't you?" We spoke for a long time. He seemed eager to keep the conversation going, as if the sound of another voice anchored him. I asked questions about the castle, the land, the strange things I'd seen. Sometimes he answered directly. Other times he deflected, pretending not to understand, but always he watched me closely. Eventually, I asked about the blue flames I'd seen the night I arrived. Why had the coach stopped at those places? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "It is said that on one night each year, last night in fact, blue flames rise from the ground where treasures lies buried. The peasants believe it. They say the spirits are free that night, and the flames mark the places where blood and gold have mingled. The land you traveled through has seen centuries of war. Walchians, Saxons, Turks, all have spilled blood there. The soil is rich with it, and where there is blood, there is often treasure." I asked, "But if the flames show where it is, why hasn't it been found?" He smiled, and his teeth flashed again. "Because the peasants are fools. The flames appear only once a year, and no man dares go out on that night. Even if they did, they wouldn't know what to do. The man you mentioned, the one who marked the spot, he wouldn't find it again in daylight. And you, my friend, would you?" I shook my head. "No, I wouldn't know where to begin." He nodded, satisfied. "Exactly." Then he changed the subject. "Tell me about London, and the house you found for me." I apologized for forgetting and went to retrieve the documents. As I passed through the dining room, I noticed the table had been cleared, the lamp lit. I hadn't heard a sound. The castle swallows noise like a tomb. When I returned to the library, the Count was reclining on the sofa, reading an English Bradshaw's guide. He cleared the table, and we went over the deeds and plans. He asked question after question about the house, the neighborhood, the people. He already knew much of it, more than I did, in fact. When I remarked on this, he said, "Is it not necessary? When I go there, I will be alone. My friend, Harker Jonathan. Pardon me, I forget your English order. My friend Jonathan Harker will be far away in Exeter working with Mr. Hawkins. I must know everything. We reviewed the purchase of the estate at Purfleet. Once he signed the papers and I prepared a letter for Mr. Hawkins, he asked how I had found such a suitable place. I read him the notes I had made at the time, which I'll copy into this journal next. I read aloud from my notes. The estate is called Carfax, likely a corruption of Quatre Faces, as the house is four-sided and aligned with the cardinal points. It spans about 20 acres, completely enclosed by a thick stone wall. The grounds are heavily wooded in places, casting deep shadows even in daylight. There's a dark, stagnant-looking pond, more like a small lake, fed by underground springs. The water is clear, but it flows away in a narrow stream that disappears into the trees. The house itself is massive, with sections dating back to medieval times. One wing is built of stone so thick it resembles a fortress keep. The windows there are few, small, and barred with iron. That part of the structure sits beside an old chapel. I couldn't enter, it was locked, but I took several photographs from different angles. The rest of the house has been added on over the centuries, in a scattered, irregular fashion. I couldn't determine how much ground it covers, but it's substantial. There are few neighboring buildings. One is a large house recently converted into a private asylum, though it's not visible from the estate grounds. When I finished, the Count was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I'm glad it is old, and large. I come from an old family, and to live in a new house would be unbearable. A home cannot be made livable in a day. And what is a century after all but a handful of days?" He stepped closer to the fire, his face half lit, half shadowed. "I'm pleased there is a chapel. We Transylvanian nobles do not like to think our bones might rest among the common dead. I do not seek laughter or light, nor the bright pleasures of youth. I am no longer young. My heart, worn down by years of mourning, is not made for mirth. The walls of my castle are broken, the shadows are many. The wind moves cold through the shattered battlements. I love the shade and the silence. I would be alone with my thoughts when I may." There was something in his voice, something hollow and ancient, that made the room feel colder. His words were mournful, but his expression wasn't. His smile, faint and tight-lipped, seemed to twist at the edges. It didn't match the sorrow in his tone, or perhaps it did, in a way I didn't yet understand. After a pause, he excused himself and asked me to gather my papers. He left the room, and I was alone again. I wandered to the bookshelves, trying to distract myself. One volume, a well-worn atlas, fell open naturally to a map of England. I noticed 3 small rings drawn in ink. One marked a spot just east of London, Carfax no doubt. The other circled Exeter and Whitby. Nearly an hour passed before the Count returned. "Ah, still reading. Good. But you must not work always. Come, your supper is ready." He took my arm and led me to the dining room. The table was set, the fire crackling. Again he did not eat, but sat with me, speaking softly as I dined. His questions were endless, about England, about customs, about the smallest details of daily life. I answered as best I could, though I felt the weight of his gaze with every word. After supper, I smoked a cigar by the fire. The Count remained, asking more questions, his voice low and steady. Time slipped by unnoticed. I wasn't tired. Yesterday's long sleep had left me restless, but I felt that strange chill that comes just before dawn, the kind that makes the hairs on your arms rise, as if the world is holding its breath. Then, from somewhere beyond the walls, a rooster crowed, sharp and sudden in the stillness. The Count stood abruptly. "Ah, morning already. How careless of me to keep you so long. You must make your talk of England less interesting, or I shall forget how time flies." He bowed, and with a sweep of his cloak, vanished into the shadows of the hall. May 8th. As I write this, I realize I may have been too long-winded in the early pages of this journal, but now I'm grateful for the detail. Something isn't right in this place. The air, the silence, the way time seems to fold in on itself. I can't explain it, but I feel it pressing in. I wish I were safely out of here, or that I had never come at all. Perhaps it's simply the strange nocturnal rhythm that's wearing on me, waking late, staying up till dawn, but I fear it's more than that. I'm starting to feel truly alone. There is no one to speak with here but the Count, and he doesn't feel like company, not truly. I begin to suspect that I may be the only living soul in this castle. So I must be methodical. If I let my imagination take over, I'll lose hold of reason. Better to deal with facts, stay grounded, stay sane. I slept only a few hours. When I woke, I got up at once. I could tell further sleep wouldn't come. I had hung my shaving mirror by the window, where the morning light might help. I had just begun to shave when I suddenly felt a hand on my shoulder and heard the Count's voice behind me. "Good morning." I jumped. I hadn't seen him in the mirror, but I should have. The glass reflected the entire room behind me. It couldn't have been an oversight. Startled, I nicked myself with the razor. The cut was small, and I barely noticed it. I answered his greeting, trying to collect myself, and turned back toward the mirror to make sense of what I'd seen, or hadn't seen. He stood right there, behind me, close. His reflection, however, was absent. The mirror showed the room clearly, every stick of furniture, every shadow except him. It wasn't my imagination. I saw him, I felt him, and yet... The unease I always feel in his presence rose in my chest like a tide. I glanced down and saw blood from the cut trickling down my chin. I reached to put the razor aside to look for something to stop the bleeding, and then I saw his face. His eyes had changed. They blazed with a wild, unnatural fury. His teeth were bared, not in pain or surprise, but in hunger. With terrifying speed, he lunged. His hand reached for my throat. I stepped back, just enough. His outstretched fingers brushed the string of beads that held the crucifix around my neck. It stopped him. Instantly, the rage melted from his face. His hand fell away. It happened so fast I almost doubted it. But no, he was furious. And then he wasn't. "You should be more careful when you shave," he said quietly. "Blood can be dangerous, especially here." Then his eyes falling on the mirror, he hissed with sudden disdain. "And this foolish trinket, this vanity?" He seized the mirror from the wall with one hand, wrenched open the window with the other, and threw the glass out into the courtyard below. I heard it shatter far beneath us. Without another word, he turned and left the room. I stood for a long time, razor in hand, unable to move. I still don't know how I'm going to shave again, unless I use the inside of my watch lid or the bottom of the shaving pot, which is mercifully made of metal. When I went down for breakfast, everything had been prepared, but the Count was gone. Again, I ate alone. Still, I have never once seen him eat, not once, not even sip water. He is unlike any man I have ever met, and I'm beginning to wonder whether he's a man at all. After breakfast, I tried to shake off the morning's events. I climbed the stairs and found a small room facing south. The view from there was breathtaking. The castle is perched at the very edge of a vast cliff. A stone drop from the window would fall for hundreds, maybe even thousands of feet. As far as I could see was a sea of treetops, broken now and then by dark ravines. Silver threads of rivers cut through the green, winding deep into the gorges below. But I couldn't enjoy it, not truly. After taking in the view, I explored more, doors upon doors, but every one locked or bolted, no exits, no corridors leading out. The windows set in the castle walls are the only paths beyond this stone cage. This place, it's a prison, and I'm a prisoner. As the sun sets beyond the Carpathian peaks and the shadows reclaim Castle Dracula, so too must we close this chapter. But Jonathan Harker's journey into darkness is far from over, and neither is ours. If this tale has drawn you in, let the story carry you deeper. Subscribe, leave your thoughts below, and consider joining me on Patreon, where the unfiltered echoes of this narrative unfold further. And to those already walking these haunted halls with me, my patrons, thank you. Your support keeps the lantern lit in these darker corners. Your names appearing now are etched in the story's spine. Until next time, keep your mirrors close and your invitations guarded. The Count is always watching.